You need to start doing nothing. You're doing too much. We know by now that more work doesn't equal more money. So let's take that exact concept and apply it to our dating life and maybe our life in general. Do nothing to do something. The act of non-doing. Today, we're going back to basics and we're talking all things feminine energy and the easiest way to actually make it work for you. There are thousands of videos on the internet today on feminine energy, but no one's actually implementing them in a way that's working. They're teaching you traits, they're not teaching you embodiment. So this is the only video you're going to need that's actually going to work for you. We don't embody feminine energy by checking off traits on a checklist. You might be nurturing and loving and compassionate and caring, but you might be completely out of your feminine energy because traits aren't embodiment. Embodiment is a completely different thing. Let's get into what this embodiment really is. Feminine energy is all about being versus doing. So what does this actually mean? Because we hear about being versus doing all the time. State of doing involves the external world. So things associated with goals, completing certain tasks, and achieving certain outcomes. Stuff that's basically just always occupying your mind and has you in a perpetual thought pattern of what next, what more, what now. This is all what we have branded masculine energy. Masculine energy is the doing energy, and it's what women have been conditioned to believe is what's getting them what they want. But that is severely incorrect. It's not at all the doing energy that's getting women what they want. Listen to these words carefully. Women get what they want by doing nothing. And here's how you are going to start doing nothing to get everything. Number one, you are not responsible for the job role of anybody else. If that job is not yours, leave it be. Stop trying to be a martyr and take on these roles that aren't yours because you're trying to mold or achieve a specific outcome. For example, if you are on a date with a man and you are just feeling awkward about letting him pay, you're gonna take on his role and just say, all right, let's split this 50-50, or I'll take the entire check, because you are trying to achieve a specific outcome. Maybe the outcome is you trying to be perceived as cool and different. This girl's so different. She didn't let me pay half the check. She paid half the check. That is not your job title. Don't take on that role because you're trying to be perceived differently. Those are all things that are active energy, which I'm going to get into, but active energy is doing energy and you're doing things to achieve a specific outcome. You might be qualified for the job. Sure. Yeah, maybe you're qualified for every job title that you're taking on right now. But does that mean you need to take the interview? No, it doesn't. It means pick up, no thank you, next, bye. We don't need to take on more things than necessary just because we want to be viewed a certain way or we want to achieve a specific outcome. All of that is way too much work, and quite frankly, it's just so exhausting. Like, who wants to do that? And you gotta start doing less to get more of what you actually want. There is something called the discrepancy monitor that is ruining your life. It ruins the lives of women. This is how the discrepancy monitor goes. First, we think of a specific outcome that we would love to have happen. Maybe we're thinking about something and we're like, oh, I really would prefer it to be this way. So we're thinking of how we want things to be or how we think they should be. Then we take that imagined idea of how we want things to be, how we prefer things to be, what we would love to see happen, and we compare it to our current reality. We're looking around and we're thinking, I'd love things to be like this. This is what I want to have happen. This is what I'm currently experiencing. We then take our imagined idea and compare it to our current reality and try to see if there's a gap. Now, 9 times out of 10, there will be a gap. This gap right here then starts to produce thoughts because now we're thinking. We love to think. We're thinking about how we can close the gap, how we can make our imagined idea our current reality. And then those thoughts start getting pushed into the body and the body starts taking action on those thoughts because we're trying to close the gap. We're trying to make shit happen. This discrepancy monitor is occurring and happening like day to day, second by second. So as we're going through our next days after we come up with the imagined idea, how things currently are, is there a gap? How do we close the gap? What actions can I take? What can I do to fix this? We start monitoring the process. Okay, are things changing? Say you went on a date with a guy you really like and things are kind of going well, but he's kind of inconsistent, and your imagined idea is you two walking off into the sunset living happily ever after. But the current reality is that he's ghosting you, or he's not responding to your messages, or he's being hot and cold. Your gap is going to be very large. And so the actions you are going to try to take by the thoughts that you're thinking is, how can I get him to like me back? How can I get him to text me back? How can I get him to ask me on another date? And you're trying to come up with all these ideas in hopes that you're closing the gap. But that is just so much active energy. This constant loop of assessing and adjusting puts you in a perpetual loop of trying, chasing, doing. And that is how you are muting your feminine energy and growing your masculine energy. Put this discrepancy monitor away for the rest of your life because you don't need it, because you are a woman. Just knowing that you are a woman and being a woman is doing enough is going to completely transform your life. As a woman, you create life. You are an inherent life breather. Anything you touch turns to gold. It turns into life. Your superpower is the fact that you can bring life into this earth. You bear a child, you give birth, and you bring a human into this world. That right there means that you are the creator of a life force energy. So just literally being a woman and acknowledging I'm a woman and that is more than enough, and that is what I bring to the table. You don't need to worry about any other job titles. I don't want to take this interview. Thank you, next. I don't want to take that interview. The law of least effort is going to be your best friend. Things that do not require your effort, you need to abandon. Some of these things include coming up with a solution for a problem, paying on a date with a man, trying to change the outcome of a situation. Emotional turmoil also does not require your effort. This means that you're coming up with icky emotions because you think that's how you need to feel in response to a situation that you didn't want to happen or is unfavorable. So say I'm texting a guy and all of a sudden he just stops talking to me, he just kind of ghosts me, or he's going hot and cold. I would start then thinking, this is feeling gross. Like, I don't like the situation. I need to come up with something. Like, I gotta put effort into my emotions here. Like, I don't feel good about this. I hate him. He sucks. That's all emotional effort that is just completely unnecessary. That brings me to active and passive energy. Passive energy is just going with the flow of your emotions, going with the flow of situations, and going with the flow of just outcome, and letting unfavorable outcomes unfold and just letting them be, not actively trying to be upset about that situation, not actively trying to fix that situation. You're just letting things be. No matter if it's positive or negative, you are just in this state of being and just allowing things to happen. Active energy is creating emotions based on unfavorable situations and outcomes, and then using those icky emotions to fuel a change in the outcome and trying to use those icky emotions to make something different happen, change it. You get ghosted? Okay, next. That person you like isn't texting you back anymore? Okay, next. The guy didn't respond to my text, but now he's looking at my story? What does that mean? No. Okay, whatever, bye, next. Those situations could have stirred up an emotional reaction, which is still a state of doing because you're putting active energy into making that feeling happen. The law of least effort means taking the path that is the easiest. Basically, the path that takes up the least amount of active energy. Instead of going down these roads of just major active energy and I have to feel like that and I have to be pissed about that and this just sucks and blah blah blah, I want you to ask the question, what's easier? If you are faced with a situation in your day-to-day life, and practice this daily because this is how you're going to reframe your mind to get into this flow state, to get into your feminine energy. So if you get faced with a situation, you're gonna ask yourself, what's easier? So for example, you wake up tomorrow and you're in a really grumpy mood. Is it easier for you to stay in that bad mood, or is it easier for you to shift into a good mood? What is easier? So throughout your day-to-day, ask yourself, what's easier? Whenever you're faced with a situation and you feel like you need to start doing and you need to put an active energy into that situation, you have to ask yourself, what's easier? Is it easier for me to just let go? Or is it easier for me to send that text paragraph? Now, here's the caveat. I don't want you watching this being like, no, it's definitely easier for me to send that message because it's just gonna make me feel so much better. It's not, because that is still active energy. You are putting active energy into this situation to try and get a different outcome. So when you're asking yourself the what's easier question, I don't want you to think of it as, well, this is just gonna make me feel a lot better. I want you to ask yourself that question and think, is there a lot lot more energy involved in this path versus this path? Am I trying to do this thing because it's gonna bring me a specific outcome and I need that specific outcome? Or are you doing this thing because you're okay, you're at peace? You don't need to send that text because you don't really care about the outcome. You have to remember that you are the creation, you are the source of life. So why are you acting like that's not enough? Start surrounding yourself with people who don't make you feel like being a woman isn't enough, that you have to prove yourself to everybody, that you have to show what you can bring to the table. You know that being a woman is enough, and if you didn't already know it, now you know it. Being a woman is enough. Start living in that embodiment and acting like you just sitting here and being on this couch with me watching this video is doing enough. And the number one thing that you have to just start being okay with is living in peace. Just letting things be. Feminine energy is like a breath of fresh air. You're just sitting, you're enjoying, the breeze is blowing, the wind is running through your hair, you have no worries in the world, you're not actively coming up with anything or thinking of anything, you're just being who you are, your magical, womanly self. I will see you in my next video. Bye.